I was standing on the deck of a river cruise ship in Germany, watching the Rhine Valley slip past like a postcard, when my phone buzzed with a text. My house sitter, a sweet college girl from my church, had sent me a photo with a simple message. "Mrs. Patterson, I'm really confused. You said no one else had keys to the house, right?" I typed back quickly. "Just me. Why, is everything okay?" Finally, a photo loaded on my screen. My living room, my cream-colored couch, my coffee table. But sitting there, as comfortable as if she owned the place, was an elderly woman. She was holding one of my teacups, the blue one with the gold rim that had been my mother's. And she was wearing my favorite cardigan, the burgundy one I'd left hanging in my closet. On the coffee table in front of her, spread out like a museum display, were my photo albums, my private, personal photo albums. I zoomed in on her face with shaking fingers, and my heart stopped, because I knew that face. Older, yes, lined and aged by 40 years, but unmistakable. "I'm grateful you're here with me. Can you tell me in the comments where you're listening from? I'd love to know how far it's traveled." Now back to my story. My name is Maggie Patterson, and I'm 64 years old. I lived in a 3-bedroom house in a quiet suburb of Cleveland, Ohio. For 35 years, I thought I knew exactly who I was. A retired elementary school teacher, David Patterson's wife, a woman who'd built a good, simple, honest life. I was wrong about all of it, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go back to the beginning, to 3 days before that photo, when everything still made sense. It was a Tuesday morning in early October when my sister Linda called me. "Maggie," she said, her voice bright with excitement, "I booked it, the Rhine River cruise. You and me, 2 weeks in Europe, just like we always talked about." My first instinct was to say no. I'd been saying no to everything since David died 8 months ago. No to dinners with friends, no to book club, no to living, really. I'd been going through the motions, teaching myself how to be alone in the house we'd shared for 3 decades. But Linda wasn't taking no for an answer. "You need this," she said firmly. "David would want you to live, Maggie. You're 64, not 94. You've got years ahead of you. Come with me, please." So I said yes, and that one word set everything in motion. The cruise left in 3 weeks, which meant I needed someone to watch the house. Our neighborhood was safe, but the house would be empty for 2 weeks. I thought about asking our neighbor Jerry, but he and his wife were snowbirds who'd already left for Florida. Then I remembered Maya Chen, a 22-year-old from our church. Sweet girl, responsible, studying nursing at Cleveland State. She'd house sat for other families in the congregation, and everyone spoke highly of her. I called her, and she accepted immediately, grateful for the extra money. "I'll take good care of everything, Mrs. Patterson," she promised. "You just go and have a wonderful time." I gave her a spare key, showed her how the security system worked, where the garbage goes out, how temperamental the upstairs toilet could be, all the little details of a house that had been my world for so long. "My husband David installed the security system about 10 years ago," I told her, showing her the panel by the front door. "It's pretty straightforward. Just punch in this code when you arrive and leave. The cameras record everything, so if anything happens, the security company will notify me immediately." Maya nodded, taking notes on her phone. "Got it. And you said you'll be unreachable sometimes? We'll be on the ship most of the time, but I'll have my phone. Text me if you need anything. Anything at all." 3 weeks later, Linda and I flew to Amsterdam, then boarded the ship for what was supposed to be a relaxing journey down the Rhine. The first 2 days were beautiful. Castles perched on hilltops, vineyards stretching to the horizon, towns that looked like they'd been frozen in time 500 years ago. I slept better than I had in months. I laughed with Linda over glasses of wine at dinner. I started to feel, for the first time since David's death, like maybe I could be okay. Then came day 3. We were docked in a small German town, and I was on the ship's deck with my morning coffee when Maya's text came through. My coffee cup slipped from my hand and shattered on the deck. "Maggie," Linda grabbed my arm. "What's wrong?" "You're white as a sheet." I couldn't speak. I just showed her the phone. Linda squinted at the photo. "Who is that?" "Diane," I managed to whisper. "David's ex-wife." "His ex-wife? The one from 40 years ago? Why would she be in your house?" "I don't know." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. I texted Maya, "Where are you? Are you safe?" The response came immediately. "I'm in my car in the driveway." "I'm scared, Mrs. Patterson. She was just sitting there when I came in. She looked at me like I was the intruder. When I asked who she was, she said, 'I live here, dear. Who are you?' I ran outside and locked the door. I called Maya, my heart pounding. She answered on the first ring, her voice trembling. 'Mrs. Patterson, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do.' 'It's okay, Maya. You did the right thing. Listen to me. I'm calling the police right now. Stay in your car with the doors locked. Don't go back inside. Do you understand?' 'Yes, okay.' I hung up and immediately dialed 911, my fingers fumbling with the international codes. When I finally got through to the Cleveland police, I tried to keep my voice steady. 'My name is Maggie Patterson. I'm out of the country and there's an intruder in my home. My house sitter just sent me a photo. There's a woman inside who shouldn't be there.' The dispatcher took my information and promised to send officers immediately. Linda was already on her laptop. 'I'm looking up flights. We need to get you home.' 'The cruise.' 'Forget the cruise, Maggie. We'll deal with the money later. Something is very wrong.' 20 minutes later, the police called me back. 'Mrs. Patterson? This is Officer Chen with Cleveland PD. We've checked your residence. There's no one inside. No signs of forced entry. All doors and windows are locked and secure. Your house sitter is here with us. She seems quite shaken up.' 'But the photo, she sent me a photo.' 'Yes, ma'am. We saw the photo. I'm not sure what to tell you. There's no one here now. We've checked every room, every closet. The house is empty.' I felt like I was losing my mind. 'Can I speak to Maya?' They put her on. Her voice was small and scared. 'Mrs. Patterson, I swear I saw her. She was real. She was sitting right there. I didn't imagine it.' 'I know, sweetie. I believe you. I saw the photo.' 'The police think I'm crazy.' 'You're not crazy. Listen, I'm coming home. I'll be there as soon as I can. Can you stay with a friend tonight? I don't want you going back in that house alone. My roommate can pick me up, but Mrs. Patterson, what if she comes back?' That was exactly what I was afraid of. Linda and I spent the next 6 hours in a blur of airports and frantic phone calls. We caught a flight from Frankfurt to New York, then New York to Cleveland. By the time we landed, it was 3 a.m. Cleveland time, and I'd been awake for nearly 24 hours. But I couldn't sleep. I needed to see my house. I needed to understand what had happened. Linda drove me from the airport. We pulled up to my house at 4 a.m., the street dark and silent. Everything looked normal. The porch light was on. The front door was locked. My key turned smoothly in the deadbolt. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it. The living room was tidy. The kitchen was clean. My coffee cup was still in the dish rack where I'd left it before the trip. I stood in the middle of my living room, looking at the couch where Diane had been sitting in the photo. The cushions were perfectly arranged. There was no teacup, no photo albums. Had Maya imagined it? Had I? Number. I had the photo. It was real. Linda yawned. 'Maggie, it's 4 a.m. Whatever happened, we're not going to figure it out right now. Let me make up the guest room. We both need sleep.' She was right. I was exhausted, running on adrenaline and fear. We went upstairs and I collapsed into bed, still wearing my travel clothes. But I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle around me. Every creak, every whisper of wind against the windows made my heart race. Around 6 a.m., I gave up. I got up, went downstairs and made coffee. Then I did what I should have done immediately. I logged into my security system on my laptop. David had installed it 10 years ago, top of the line, with cameras covering the front door, back door, and living room. Everything recorded. I pulled up the footage from the day before, the time when Maya would have arrived. There was Maya at 2 p.m., letting herself in the front door. She moved through the frame toward the living room, carrying her backpack. Then, nothing. The timestamp jumped from 2:03 p.m. to 4:47 p.m. Nearly 3 hours of footage were just gone. I rewound and watched again. Same thing. A clean jump, like someone had edited the video. My hands went cold. I started scrolling back through the footage. Days, weeks, months, looking for other gaps. And I found them. Every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 6 months, there were gaps in the footage. Always in the afternoon, always 2 to 3 hours missing, someone had been coming into my house, regularly, for months, and somehow they were erasing the footage. I grabbed my phone and called the security company. A bored-sounding technician answered after 4 rings. ADT Security, this is Marcus. How can I help you? This is Maggie Patterson. I have footage missing from my security cameras. Multiple days. I need to know how that's possible. I heard typing. Okay, Mrs. Patterson. Pulling up your account. Can you tell me which dates you're seeing issues with? I listed them. More typing. Huh, that's weird. What's weird? The system shows the cameras were manually disabled during those time periods, like someone turned them off through the app, then turned them back on. That's impossible. I don't know how to do that, and I'm the only one with access. Well, actually, ma'am, it looks like there are 2 administrators on the account. You and David Patterson, my husband, who'd been dead for 8 months. Can you tell me when those cameras were disabled? Like, was it done from a phone, a computer? Can you track that? More typing. It's coming from the original administrator account, the one set up when the system was installed. Looks like it's been programmed to automatically disable during those specific time windows. It's a scheduled setting. A scheduled setting? You mean someone programmed this years ago? Yes, ma'am. According to the logs, this was set up when the system was first installed. 10 years ago. I felt sick. David had built this into the system. Why had David created blind spots in our home security? Can you disable that setting? I asked. Sure. I can do that right now, but Mrs. Patterson, I have to tell you, if this was programmed in from the beginning, whoever set it up had a reason. You might want to look into why. After I hung up, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and started going through everything I could find about David's past. His old files, his documents, anything that might explain this. David had been a careful man, organized. He kept everything filed and labeled in his study. Tax returns, insurance papers, warranties for appliances we'd bought 20 years ago. I'd gone through most of it after he died, dealing with the estate, but I'd been in a fog of grief. I hadn't been looking for secrets. Now I was. I found his old address book, the paper kind he'd kept in his desk drawer, even after everyone moved to phones. I flipped through it, looking for Diane's name. There it was. Diane Patterson with an Arizona address and phone number. But there was another address crossed out above it. A local address, here in Cleveland. I stared at it for a long time. Then I did something that felt insane but necessary. I got in my car and drove to that address. It was a small apartment building in a neighborhood about 20 minutes from my house. Older building, but well-maintained. I parked across the street and just sat there, not knowing what I was looking for. After about 15 minutes, the front door opened, and Diane walked out. She looked older than in the photo Maya had sent, more frail, but it was unmistakably her. She was carrying a shopping bag, moving slowly down the front steps. My heart pounded as I watched her walk down the sidewalk toward a small grocery store on the corner. She was here, in Cleveland, not in Arizona like David had always told me. How long had she been here? I waited until she disappeared into the store, then I did something I'm not proud of. I got out of my car and walked up to the apartment building. The front door required a key, but as I stood there, an elderly man came out and held the door open for me. "Thank you," I said, trying to look like I belonged there. I checked the mailboxes in the lobby. There it was. D. Patterson, apartment 3C. I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, my heart hammering. What was I doing? This was crazy. This was breaking and entering or trespassing or something illegal, but I needed to know. I stood outside apartment 3C and knocked. No answer, of course. She was at the store. I tried the doorknob. Locked. I was about to leave when I noticed something. Tucked under the doormat was a key. The same key I had at home. The same brand, the same color tab. With shaking hands, I picked it up and unlocked the door. The apartment was small. A living room with a kitchen, a bedroom I could see through an open door. But what made my blood run cold was what covered the walls. Photos. Dozens of them. All of David. David at different ages. Young David, middle-aged David, recent David. Photos I recognized from our house. Photos I didn't recognize. Photos that looked like they'd been taken without his knowledge. David getting into his car. David at a restaurant, David at the grocery store. On a small desk by the window, there were notebooks. I opened one with trembling hands. It was a diary. Diane's diary. Page after page in neat handwriting, all about David. Saw David at the store today. He looked tired. I wanted to talk to him, but stayed hidden like he asked. David called. He says soon. He says he's working on it. He says Maggie doesn't understand him like I do. Tuesday visit. David let me into the house. We looked at the photo albums. He says these should have been our memories. He says he's made a mistake all those years ago. He says he's going to fix it. I flipped through the pages, my hands shaking, my stomach churning. David says when the time is right, he'll tell Maggie the truth, that we never really divorced, that the paperwork was never filed, that legally, I'm still his wife. He says the house is mine. He's going to leave it to me. Maggie was always temporary. I just have to be patient. The notebook slipped from my hands and hit the floor. Never divorced? That was impossible. David and Diane had divorced 40 years ago, long before I met him. He'd shown me the papers. We'd gotten married legally. We'd filed joint tax returns. We'd been married for 35 years, except had I actually seen the divorce papers, or had David just told me they were divorced? I tried to remember. It was so long ago. I'd been 29 when we met. He'd been 35. He'd told me he'd been married young, that it hadn't worked out, that he'd been divorced for 2 years. I'd believed him. Why wouldn't I? But what if he'd lied? I heard footsteps in the hallway outside. I shoved the notebook back on the desk and ran for the door, my heart in my throat. I slipped out just as I heard keys jangling somewhere down the hall. I practically ran down the stairs and out of the building, back to my car. I sat there shaking, trying to process what I'd just read. David had been letting Diane into our house for years. While I was at work, while I was volunteering, while I was living my life thinking everything was normal, he'd been promising her that she was his real wife, that I was temporary, that the house, my house, the house I'd lived in for 30 years, was hers. This was crazy. I needed proof, real proof. I drove straight to the county courthouse. The records office was in the basement, and the woman behind the counter looked annoyed when I approached, clearly hoping to finish her day without any more customers. I need to see a divorce record, I said. David Patterson and Diane Patterson, it should have been filed about 40 years ago. She sighed and turned to her computer. Spell the last name? I spelled it. She typed, clicked, frowned. I'm not seeing anything. Are you sure about the names? Positive. Can you check under Diane's maiden name? Diane McCallison? More typing, more clicking, more frowning. I'm not finding any divorce record for those names in that time period. Are you sure it was filed in this county? It had to be. They lived here. They bought a house here. She gave me a sympathetic look. Ma'am, if I'm not finding it, it probably wasn't filed. Do you want me to print a certificate of non-filing? It's basically a document that states we have no record of the divorce. Yes, I whispered. Please. She printed it out and handed it to me. Official county seal dated today stating that no divorce record existed for David Patterson and Diane Morrison/Patterson. I walked out of the courthouse in a daze. For 35 years, I'd been living with a man who was already married to someone else. I was the other woman. I just hadn't known it. I drove home and called the one person who might be able to help me make sense of this. Janice, the lawyer who'd handled my first divorce 30 years ago. We'd stayed friendly over the years, exchanged Christmas cards, the way you do with people who helped you through a difficult time. Maggie, she sounded surprised to hear from me. Is everything okay? No, I said. I need your help. I told her everything. The photo, Diane, the diary, the missing divorce record. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Maggie, she said finally, if what you're telling me is true, you were never legally married to David, which means I have no claim to anything. The house, his pension, his Social Security, nothing. I'm so sorry, but yes, if Diane was his legal wife, she'd be entitled to everything. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. What do I do? First, we need to verify everything. I'll need to see that non-filing certificate, Diane's apartment, those diaries. We need to build a clear picture of what happened. Can you come to my office tomorrow? Yes, I'll be there. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about 35 years of my life that had been built on a lie. The next morning, Linda drove me to Janice's office. I brought everything: the photo from Maya, screenshots of the missing security footage, the non-filing certificate, photos I'd taken of Diane's apartment, and diary entries with my phone. Janice spread it all out on her conference table and studied it like a puzzle. "This is one of the strangest cases I've ever seen," she said. "Your husband was maintaining two lives, two wives, for decades. The security system with the programmed blind spots shows premeditation. He knew exactly what he was doing." "But why?" I asked. "Why not just divorce one of us and pick the other?" "Control," Janet said. "Men like this, they want to have everything. They don't want to choose. They want both lives simultaneously." "What do I do now?" "Well, first you need to know that the house is in David's name only, correct?" I nodded. "He bought it before we got married. He always said it was easier to just leave it in his name for tax purposes." "Clever," Janet said grimly. "That means when he died, it would go according to his will." "Do you know what his will says?" Yes. He left everything to me. I saw the will. We filed it with the probate court." "Okay, we need to get a copy of that will. Because if Diane was his legal wife, she could contest it, and she'd probably win." My stomach turned. She could take the house? She could take everything. Over the next 2 weeks, I learned things about David that shattered every memory I had of our life together. The private investigator Janice hired discovered that David had been in contact with Diane continuously for 40 years. Phone records showed calls every week. Bank records showed he'd been giving her money, not a lot, but enough. Enough to keep her waiting. Enough to keep her hope alive. The will was more complicated. David had indeed left everything to me, but he'd also left a safety deposit box to Diane. "Sentimental items," the will said. When we opened that box, we found the real truth. Insurance policies with Diane as the beneficiary. Copies of the house deed showing it had originally been purchased by David and Diane together 45 years ago. Love letters from David to Diane dated just months before he died. "My darling Diane," one read. "Soon, I promise. Once I get my affairs in order, I'll tell Maggie the truth. The house was always meant to be yours. You are my true wife. Please be patient just a little longer." And there was one more thing in that box, a folder labeled Arizona Plan. Inside were travel brochures for Arizona, real estate listings, and a handwritten note in David's writing. "Tell Maggie I'm moving to Arizona for health reasons. File for divorce. Start over with D in Scottsdale. M keeps Cleveland house. D and I get new house. Everyone happy." He'd been planning to fake a move, divorce me, and start over with Diane in Arizona, but he died before he could do it. I sat in Janice's office, holding that folder, and I couldn't even cry. I was beyond tears. "He was going to leave me," I said. "After 35 years, he was just going to leave." "Yes," Janice said gently. "I'm sorry, Maggie." He was. "So what now? Diane gets everything?" Janice was quiet for a moment. "Legally, she has a strong case for the house. She was his legal wife. The house was originally joint property. But, Maggie, there's something else you should know." She pulled out another document. The PI found something interesting. David had offshore bank accounts. Quite a lot of money in them. Money that doesn't appear on any of the estate documents. "How much money?" "About $800,000. I stared at her. "Where did that come from?" "We're not sure yet, but it's possible it came from embezzlement. Your husband worked in corporate accounting for 30 years. He had access to a lot of money. If he was skimming a little bit over 3 decades, it would add up." My husband wasn't just a cheater. He was a thief. "What do we do?" I asked. "Well," Janet said carefully, "we have a few options. We can report the embezzlement to the authorities and his former company, in which case, that money gets seized and you and Diane get nothing. Or ... Or we could approach Diane directly. Tell her what we found. See if she wants to work together." "Work together?" She's trying to take my house. Is she? Or is she just a woman who was lied to for 40 years just like you were? I thought about the diary entries. Diane waiting, Diane hoping, Diane believing David's promises. She wasn't my enemy. David was. Set up a meeting, I said. 3 days later, I sat across from Diane in a coffee shop. She looked nervous, old, fragile, not the villain I'd built up in my mind. Mrs. Patterson, she started, but I held up my hand. It's Maggie, and you're Diane. We're not enemies. She looked surprised. Then tears filled her eyes. I didn't know about you. Not for so long. He told me you were just a tenant, someone renting the house while he traveled for work. I didn't know you thought you were married to him, and I didn't know he'd never divorced you. We were both lied to. We spent 2 hours at that coffee shop, comparing stories, the promises David had made, the lies he'd told, the way he'd kept us both hoping, both waiting. He told me the house was mine, Diane said, that after he died I could move in. He told me the same thing, that it was ours, that I'd always have a home. We looked at each other, two women who'd wasted decades on the same man. I have something to show you, I said, and pulled out the folder about the offshore accounts. Diane's eyes widened as she read. He stole this? We think so. Which means if we report it, it gets seized by the authorities, but if we don't, we could split it, Diane said slowly. We could both walk away with something. The house is legally yours, I said. I know that, but I've lived there for 30 years. I can't afford to just start over with nothing. Diane was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I don't want the house. Too many ghosts, too many years of waiting in the wings, but I need security. I need to know I'll be okay. So do I. We worked it out over the next hour. Diane would sign over her claim to the house to me for $1, legally giving me ownership. In exchange, we'd split the offshore accounts 50-50. Each of us would walk away with $400,000 and our dignity. We'd also report the embezzlement anonymously, making sure David's company knew what he'd done. His reputation would be destroyed, but neither of us cared about protecting him anymore. There's one more thing, Diane said. I want to apologize for coming into your house. I thought it was mine. David gave me a key years ago, told me to visit during those times when the cameras were off. He said you worked then and would never know. I just wanted to feel like I belonged somewhere, like I'd had a life. You did have a life, I said. It was stolen from you, just like mine was stolen from me. We both cried then, in that coffee shop, two women grieving the same loss. The legal process took 3 months. Diane signed over the house. We withdrew the offshore money and split it. We filed an anonymous report with David's former company, and within weeks his embezzlement was discovered. His obituary was quietly amended in the company newsletter, his name removed from their Hall of Honor. I sold the house in December. Couldn't stand to live there anymore knowing what I knew. Every room held memories that were now tainted, every corner whispered lies. I bought a small condo downtown close to Linda, bright and modern and completely mine. No history, no ghosts. Diane moved back to Arizona where she'd always wanted to live. We text sometimes. Not friends exactly, but connected by our shared experience. Maya, the house sitter, still apologizes every time I see her at church. I always tell her the same thing. You saved me. If you hadn't been there that day, I might never have known the truth. 6 months after everything was settled, I ran into Maya at a coffee shop. She was with a group of nursing school friends studying for exams. Mrs. Patterson, she jumped up and hugged me. How are you? I've been thinking about you. I'm good, Maya. Really good. And I never properly thanked you for what you did. I didn't do anything. I just saw her and panicked. You told me the truth. That's everything. As I walked back to my car that day, I thought about the past year. I'd lost a marriage that was never real. I'd lost a house full of memories that were built on lies. I'd lost 35 years, but I'd gained something too, the truth, my freedom, the knowledge that I was strong enough to rebuild. I'm 65 now. I work part-time at a bookstore, something I always wanted to do but never had time for when I was teaching. I take pottery classes on Tuesday nights. I travel with Linda whenever we can. Sometimes I think about David, about the man I thought I knew. I wonder if he ever felt guilty. I wonder if he ever planned to tell the truth or if he would have just kept lying forever. I learned something important. You can't build a life on someone else's foundation. You have to pour your own concrete, lay your own bricks. And that's what I'm doing now. Building something real, something that's completely mine. It's small, it's simple, but it's true. And truth, I've learned, is worth more than any house, any marriage, any comfortable lie. The day I signed the papers for my condo, I stood in the empty living room, sunlight streaming through the windows, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not for a relationship or a partner or someone to complete me. Hope for myself, for my own life, for the years ahead that were mine to fill however I wanted. I hung my photos on the wall, pictures of Linda and me in Europe, pictures from my pottery class, pictures of my bookstore colleagues. New memories, real memories. No more ghosts, no more lies. Just me, Maggie Patterson, finally learning what it means to truly live in my own home. Has this ever happened to you or a friend of yours? I would love to hear your story. Can you also do me a favor and subscribe to this channel? This way, we can meet again in another story.